Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And that's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, as always, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo, Kurlan. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing fine. It was kind of like a really crazy weekend. I mean, it was a weekend of I call it a weekend of New York sports disappointment, is what it was. Even though there was some fun parts of the weekend that was sort of New York sports related, but at the same time it was kind of fun. But for one thing, I come back from I went to a tree lighting ceremony in my neighborhood, right? I rush back home I come home just in time to catch the Rangers game. I pull up, I hit up my chair. I hit up the chair in my room, click on the TV, hook up my phone to the power bank, and then I'm looking at my phone, and I notice during the first intermission, Jacob deGrom bolted us. How could you, Jacob?
Yeah, it was one of the worst sports nights that I can ever remember, specifically just that Friday night that you're talking about, because not only, like you said, did Jacob deGrom, right around 8 o'clock that night, signs with the Texas Rangers, which we'll get into that in a little more once we express ourselves. But then that night, that Ranger game that you're sitting there watching, they're winning the whole time. They blow the lead in the final minute of the game, and then they lose in overtime. Man, what a crappy way to start that weekend. Then the next night, or the next morning, actually, the U.S. goes out and loses in the World Cup to the Netherlands. Boom, they're gone in the round of 16. That night, the Rangers go out and lose again, getting knocked around by, who was it, the Chicago Blackhawks. I think they were playing that night. And then on Sunday, our Rangers go out and our football teams go out, actually, and have just another crappy day. The Jets lose 27-22 to Minnesota. The Giants tie 2020. Man, what a crazy weekend this has been.
Yeah, it sure was. Like, I just felt horrible. I mean, for one thing, that Jacob deGrom news happened out of all the nights that the biggest tragedy in Mets history since 1977 that happened the night before the Queen's baseball convention. So, that day when I was there at this, I believe the hotel was called 4 Points by Sheridan, where they held it this year. It was in Main Street, like not far from the short walk from the Main Street Flushing station. So I go there, right? Over in Queens, Main Street Flushing. I could tell you it was like a weird mood because you could tell there were plenty of Met fans. I mean, excited at the Queens baseball convention, but disappointed, which I don't blame you. But by the way, I got some little freebies for you, by the way, Robert.
Oh, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. So did you have a good time there, though? I know it probably felt like a little bit of a funeral, with deGrom leaving and everything. But how was it?
It did a little bit, but there was also some good moments. I mean, the panels, of course, are R.A. Dickey that's signing autographs. Of course, they got already signed something. Then you had the Hojo panel, got Hojo to sign something. Also the R.A. the Bartolo Colon panel, which was great, got Bartolo to sign something for myself also. But also there was some vendors selling some stuff, so I may have picked up some little stuff for myself also.
Very cool, man. I'm glad to hear that you had a good time there, because that Queens baseball convention is always a good time. They always have fun stuff going on there.
Definitely, you should definitely go next year. You have to go next year. Definitely, yeah.
I'm definitely in, man. I was very upset that I couldn't attend this year. Unfortunately, I already had a prior engagement this past Saturday, but I definitely want to do it next year. And hopefully next year for the Queens Baseball Convention, we'll be celebrating a Mets World Series.
Yeah, but I would love to know what a post championship Queens baseball convention would be like. I know the last couple of years, like last year they did in November, this year they did in December. In the past, they would do it around January, usually kind of making it as a preseason thing was. Now this is kind of sort of an off season thing, but at the same time, almost like a couple months after the season happened. But it was great and all.
We mentioned because obviously my jaw hit the ground when I saw the news of deGrom leaving breaking. You were just talking about how you found out during the game too. Your jaw must have hit the ground. You know, the emotions aside, because obviously we both love deGrom. We've said it many times on this podcast over the last, you know, however long we've been doing it over these last 40 episodes, which by the way, this is episode number 40. So that's a nice little milestone for us. So thank you for everybody for catching out and sticking with us through these 40 episodes.
Yep, speaking of Bartolo Colon beat at the Queen Baseball Convention, it's episode 40.
Very true. Very true. Good call. And, so what, like emotions aside, what is your reaction to this deGrom deal? He gets 5 years, 185 million from the Texas Rangers, which comes out to about 37 million a year. That's not the way it's going to break out in the contract, though. He's actually going to take a pay cut this year. The Mets paid him 35.5 million this year. He's only going to be making 30, and I say only, going to be making 30 million this year. He'll be making 40 million the 2 years following this, and then he'll be making 30 and 37 and 38 in the final 2 years of that deal. There's also a $20 million option year that could vest and kick in if he gets to whatever milestones. I think it was like 140 innings or something like that prior to the year, whatever his numbers are. So, I mean, this could be a 6-year, well over $200 million contract if that 6th year is vested. What do you think, Dan? Do you think it was a good move that the Mets said, and let's make the bottom line, deGrom apparently didn't even give the Mets a chance to match that offer. But my question to you is, are you happy that the Mets didn't give him an offer like that?
Well, I have a feeling the Mets would have given him an offer to match that offer, but unfortunately, as we know, Jacob deGrom didn't want to return. Apparently, all this time this year, I just feel it was bad all the way. I mean, you freaking we lost one of the best pitchers we've ever had and go to free agency. It's a big shoes to fill.
No doubt about it.
I know that he wasn't around for most of the season, but it was a big thing for him to return. And Jacob deGrom he's like this X factor when he's on the mound.
Oh, and no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Not something that's going to be easily replaced to generate talent.
That's true.
Like
that's
when
true.
People who remember in Chicago when they remember Michael Jordan, that was like one of those generational talents, and you let him walk away, and the guy didn't even want to play for us.
It is upsetting. Now, you know what, Dan, who are you more upset at? Because the answer for me is everybody. But who are you more upset at? Are you more upset at, Billy Epler and Steve Cohen for letting him walk? Or are you more upset at Jacob deGrom for seemingly not wanting to come back?
I feel, well, for one thing, I feel he could have been a Met had he wanted to come back. I'm sure they would have given him a great offer, but the reality is I'm more upset at Jacob deGrom because he just walked and made it clear he didn't want to return. Because I feel that affected what he would have gotten, the offer he would have gotten from the Mets.
Well, that's true, but supposedly the Mets offered him 3 years and 120 million, which that's a lot of fucking money. I'm not going to say it's not, but if you compare that to the Texas Rangers offer, It's not really close. I mean, they guaranteed him 2 more years at, 65 million more dollars. So I I really don't, as angry as I am at deGrom, because I am definitely angry at Jacob deGrom uh for taking this offer and for bolting the way he did. But I don't think the Mets wanted to give deGrom a 5-year deal. I think the Mets really, like we saw, and we'll talk about this in a second, because obviously the Mets pivoted and signed Justin Verlander, which I'm sure I'm very happy about. I'm sure you're very happy about, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But, there's something to the Mets keeping these guys on short-term contracts because they want to have this financial flexibility. They gave a 3-year deal to Scherzer. They gave this 3-year deal, really a 2-year deal with a 3rd-year vesting for Verlander. They want to keep these guys on short-term contracts so they have that flexibility to not be locked into these long-term, big money albatross contracts. And I understand that. But there's also something to retaining your players. Like let's think about this. Aside from Edwin Diaz, who we said we're both very happy that the Mets retained and kept. I mean, let's look at these guys. The Mets just let Michael Conforto walk last. All these other guys. How many guys are we going to let leave? And you know what I mean? Like, I feel like this Met hierarchy is really focused on outside free agents and really doesn't I don't know, maybe pay attention to their own free agents, because right now it looks like they're going to lose Brandon Nimmo too. What do you think about that? Do you think the Mets should try to pay a little bit more attention to their own guys?
Yeah, I think they really should. I think all the great teams had at least a core group of players, and that's one of the keys to finally getting us a championship. Keeping a core group of players. I just hope we don't make this mistake with McNeil and Alonso.
They have to go out and extend those guys. I totally agree with you. But yeah,
I have guys might be a little easier if we get them right at the right time.
Oh yeah,
they seem to be more inclined to want to be here. I mean, Nimmo might be a whole different other case because he's a Scott Boras. We know how that is with Scott Boras players. They'll bolt quickly. You know how that is.
True.
But deGrom, I feel we could have gotten deGrom. They could have gotten deGrom at the deal they wanted to get him at if he wanted to stay. But it was like they did not see Texas offering this deal.
Yeah, well that's true too. Maybe they underestimated deGrom's market and didn't think that he was going to get a 5-year deal, and maybe they thought that he was going to come crawling back to him, and that plan blew up in their face.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't want to go offer him a big deal right away. It looked like they were waiting to see what another team was going to offer him first before they were waiting for a counter. They were going to give one offer, then they were going to go to a counter offer if they needed to. But unfortunately, it's probably partly deGrom why Jacob deGrom left was Jacob deGrom, because he did not even give the Mets didn't even get a chance to give him another offer.
That's true.
Or as they see it, Jacob deGrom might be on the Shizer list.
Oh yeah. If you ask me, he's definitely on the Shizer list. In fact, I've been calling him, like the old WWF wrestler, I've been calling him Jake the Snake over the last couple of days, because he just he really stabbed the Mets in the back. Ultimate heel turn from Jacob deGrom. On the other side with the Yankees, though, and we'll talk about, we'll finish up with the Mets first, but it just does suck when you look on the other side that the other big time free agent linked to New York, Aaron Judge, who earlier today came to a contract with the New York Yankees for 9 years, $360 million, and left money on the table and called the Yankees and told them, hey guys, I got, more money from the Padres or the Giants, but I want to be a Yankee. if if you guys could come anywhere near that, I'll stay a Yankee. And the Yankees did. They bumped their offer up from 8 years, 320 to 9 years, 360. Next thing you know, Aaron Judge is a Yankee. It just sucks that, the Mets didn't get the same, opportunity that the Yankees did.
I just feel like Aaron Judge gave the Yankees all the chances they were going to get, they could possibly get to sign him, and we did not get that luxury. We did not get that. It looked like there was a lot of rumbling in the club about people saying in the clubhouse that he was eager to bolt, and that country bumpkin left us.
Yeah, it did.
And unfortunately, good luck. Maybe on a 70-win team.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Texas is going to be good. So the fact that he signed there really says to me that he cares more about that money than he does winning. And hey, I mean, I can't blame the guy for that. He's doing what's best for his family. He's doing what's best for the financial future of everyone in his family. But hey, you would really have, the Mets could have paid him a lot of money, and he would have had a much better chance to win.
And I'm sure he could have got whatever he was expecting out here in New York. I mean, he could have got. He just probably, for whatever reason, wasn't in his comfort zone here and didn't want to play here. But he could have been a forever legend, maybe potentially winning us a World Series, never having to buy a drink again in New York.
Yeah. Well, there is a guy, maybe Jake the Snake wasn't up to the task, and he wasn't really, he got cold feet, and now he's not really sure if he wants to be in New York anymore, so he bolted and went to Texas. But I'll tell you this much, there's a guy who just did the complete opposite. That guy is Justin Verlander. Justin Verlander left Texas. Justin Verlander left the Houston Astros. Justin Verlander said, I want to be in the biggest city in the world. I want to be in the biggest baseball market in the world. And I want to bring a World Series championship to Queens. And Justin Verlander, a slam dunk future Hall of Famer with 244 career wins, is coming to the New York Mets, and Jacob deGrom and his 82 wins can take a hike. We even got more Cy Youngs. Verlander's got 3 Cy Youngs and an MVP, by the way. And, Jake doesn't have, Jake has two great seasons, but man, I feel very, very excited. I'm very happy with this Verlander deal. 2 years, $86 million, could be third, like I said before, at pretty much the same money. I'm pumped about it, man. I love the fact seeing Verlander here. I think him and Scherzer are going to feed off each other and be a great 1-2 punch. What do you think about that? What was your initial reaction when you heard that the Mets signed Verlander?
That was a little bit of a. I thought that was a little bit of a compensation. I was happy about it. At the same time, I feel like it's going to be all in about what happens during the season, and hopefully the Verlander lives up to this expectation. Yeah, he did all this stuff in Houston, but we got to hit something. We got to see if he can do that here.
That's true. I mean, but Verlander is a guy that I think won't be intimidated by the big stage of New York. This is a guy who now has 2 World Series championships under his belt. He's pitched in 5 World Series throughout his career. This is just a guy that has been there and done that before, and he's going to bring that experience, and he's going to bring that work ethic. And hey, one other thing too about deGrom is that I think that Verlander is going to bring a lot of these leadership qualities that maybe deGrom lacked in a little bit. I don't know. I hear these guys in the media really hammering deGrom for, he wasn't one of the guys. He, didn't really fit in. He was always kind of an outlier. I don't know if I really saw that. It seemed like deGrom was just one of the guys when he was hanging out in the dugout with Bassett and Scherzer for the last couple of months of the season. And I never noticed anything different. Do you think that deGrom was lacking in leadership at all? Or do you think that's just kind of them, throwing him under the bus now because he left town?
I think that may be a little bit throwing on the bus, but at the same time, maybe I do believe maybe some of it, maybe he all this time wanted to leave, but it shocked me to learn this because it seemed like he took very well to pitching here in New York. I mean, this was a pitcher who arrived to the majors, not very high expectations, into one of the biggest pressure cookers there is. He came in a big spot. If I'm correct, the first batter he faced was Derek Jeter of all people, and he in
Sounds about right.
front of a large sold out crowd in New York. His rookie year, he seemed to handle it very well and adjusted to in the major leagues. In 2015, of course, he was part of that magical October run that I feel we nearly won the World Series. That magical run in 2016. I mean, there were some years he maybe had a little hiccups with some injuries, but other than those little hiccups with those injuries, he pitched very well. Even
Yeah.
after expectations got higher and higher with each thing he did, like Cy Young. He won back to back Cy Youngs, which I don't know how many people could say they've done that back to back years.
It's true. Even Seaver didn't win back to back. So, Seaver won in 69, 73, and 75. DeGrom won in 18 and 19. So, yeah, you're definitely right about that, man.
Yeah, probably would have won one had they had a full season in 2020. Looked like he was on pace for that in 2021 without the injuries. And he showed signs that what well, unfortunately there was little injuries in 2022, but and
Yeah.
I'm not really during the season. I'm not really going to pay attention to what he's doing. Maybe I might look a little bit after the season ended, but I just know so far during the season, especially in the beginning of the season, I could care less about what deGrom does somewhere else. I mean, it's
Yeah.
going to be about how we respond to this, how much of this team we're able to retain, because I feel we got to have do a good job of retaining some of this team that got us to somewhere we don't get to that much the playoffs. I mean, it's a 103 win team. I hope we could pull off what will be for only the third time in history if we make it back to back postseason appearances. It's only happened twice in our history.
That's true. 99 and 2000 and 15 and 16 are the only two other times they made it back to back years. Let's hope they could do it. But unfortunately, I agree with what you're saying. I don't think a lot of these guys from that team last year are going to be coming back. Obviously Taijuan Walker signed down in Philadelphia for 4 years, $72 million. It's big money, decently long deal for Taijuan. So, hey, congratulations to him. Hope he takes his money and likes it down there in Philly. Apparently, Philly just can't get enough of having former Mets on their team. The other thing is too, the Mets also made another move today. They signed Jose Quintana, the lefty, former Pittsburgh Pirate and St. Louis Cardinal. So actually, the Mets are going to be the first team in Major League history. I'm sorry, Dan. I saw you're trying to say something. I just want to get this last line in. The Mets are going to be the first team in Major League history next year to have three pitchers on their team who all started game one of a playoff series the previous year. So Quintana started game one of his playoff series for the Cardinals. Verlander started game one for the Astros, and Scherzer started game one for the Mets. So just very little interesting tidbit there to throw out there. So sorry, Dan, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say, yeah, that hopefully, I feel we need to have another bat in the lineup.
They desperately need another bat, and that's even if they add Brandon Nimmo. If you bring back Brandon Nimmo, that can't be it. You still have to add somebody else. I'm sorry. And I know the Mets are already, once these Verlander and Quintana contracts become, you know, whatever you want to say, finalized, um, they're still they're gonna be over the $300 million mark, which means they're in that Cohen tax territory. But the Mets can't stop here. Keep going. They should probably even still add a number three starter. Who knows what that could be. I feel more comfortable with Quintana in that number 4 or 5 role with him and Carlos Carrasco rounding out the rotation. I think the Mets still need to bring in a number 3. I think the Mets still need to bring back Brandon Nimmo, and I think the Mets need to add one more bat to the situation. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's what they need to do. Also, I have a feeling we're gonna get that Japanese guy, that pitcher. What's his name? I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Senga.
Senga. I'm trying to getting used to pronouncing that name. Believe me, if he joins the Mets, I'll have the pronunciation right by opening.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that, man. I'm a big fan of Senga. I would love to see the Mets, sign him and stick him in that rotation. I think that would be perfect. And
Yep,
and you know, I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
I have a feeling now that we have Steve Cohen owning this team, when we take a risk on some Japanese players like this,
Yeah,
I have a go a little bit better than it did during the Wilpon era.
yeah,
Specifically,
that's true. That's true.
hoping that we rely that any information on anything that may have sold the Mets and wanting to sign this guy probably was from the scouting department, rather than, let's say, like I heard, like I can't confirm if this was true or not, but I recall Kaz Matsui was supposedly because Jeff Wilpon just saw him in a game in Japan, supposedly. Why? That's
Oh,
what I.
that makes sense why that didn't work out. But you know what? One other thing too about Senga that I would love, if they do bring him in, I think that would be a big sign, pointing in the right direction of Otani coming to the Mets next year, because as we all know, Shohei Otani is on the last year of his contract with the Los Angeles Angels next year. It's a 1 year, $30 million contract, and then he's a free agent. So there's a chance he gets traded at the deadline. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But I think that Shohei Otani is really going to be a big time. I mean, obviously, next year, he's going to be the biggest free agent of all time. It's going to blow this Aaron Judge out of the water because everybody is going to be trying to get him. And I really think the Mets are going to try to land Senga, so they have a guy on the team already to help recruit him in. I think that'll be a perfect opportunity for the Mets to do that. What do you think about that, Dan?
That would be also. I think the other thing that's going to mainly also play a factor if next year we go after Shohei Otani is going to be Shohei Otani at times doesn't want to accept the trade, and apparently he had said that the only team he'd be willing to be traded to was the Mets because of his connection with Billy Epler.
That
Apparently,
that is true too. You're right.
I think he apparently thinks Billy Epler would. He trusted Billy Epler would give him the assurance that it would work out well playing in New York. Even though at first when he signed with the Angels, he didn't seem comfortable playing in a big market, but I guess he feels there'd be, I guess the right people maybe might that brought him into Anaheim. He could succeed in New York, and believe me, if he succeeded here,
All right, and before we move on from baseball, as we got a lot of our Mets talk out of the way, all the big news of the day, the last couple of days, the biggest news of today that came from baseball was Aaron Judge re-signing with the Yankees. We touched on it a couple of minutes ago, but I just want to revisit that real quick here. Dan, what was your thoughts? I mean, yesterday there was uh, a big to do about 5, 6 o'clock yesterday evening, where John Heyman of the New York Post tweeted out that it looked like Aaron Judge was heading to the San Francisco Giants. That turned out to not be true. And then last night, Hal Steinbrenner apparently got in touch with Aaron. They talked. The offer was bumped up, and the Yankees end up getting him signed, sealed, and delivered. What was your thoughts over the last 24 hours, Dan? Did you think that Judge was heading back to the Yankees, or were you kind of thinking he was heading out west?
I was thinking it was one of those that was going to be a nail biter to the last second. I mean, part of me kind of think like he was probably going to resign the Yankees. Part of me seemed like he was probably going to bolt, but to my surprise, and I got to give, even though I'm a Mets fan, I got to give a big hats off to, applause to Aaron Judge, because it seemed like he wanted to stay with the Yankees all this time. I mean, he probably was offered this. This offer. I mean, he could have easily taken. It was definitely a great offer he was getting from San Francisco that he probably felt he could have been happy with, but he wanted to sign with the Yankees if he got the offer that he was, and somehow he gave them that chance. Is why I think it happened. I think it was all on Aaron Judge more than it was on Brian Cashman and Hal Steinbrenner. Aaron Judge gave the Yankees. There was no question that if Aaron Judge wanted to come back to the Yankees, they were willing to give him whatever he wanted, and but he probably and by the I guess somehow he actually agreed to it. He gave the Yankees a chance to re-sign him, and it worked out well for Yankee fans that they won't have to put their Aaron Judge jerseys in storage, and probably a big relief to the people who maintain Yankee Stadium. Didn't have to do any renovations to that little at Yankee Stadium. You know, the little judge.
Yeah, the judges' chambers. Yeah.
Or you've been to Yankee Stadium, you probably noticed it. Probably a little relief for the people who maintain the stadium. Probably they didn't have to do some renovation work on that one.
Yeah, that's true. And hey, and just like you said too, you got to give credit to Aaron Judge for wanting to come back. He cared about his legacy as a Yankee. He wants to win a championship as a Yankee. He wants to be here, and he wants to go down as one of the Yankee all-time greats. Especially, one of the New York all-time greats, which apparently didn't matter to Jacob deGrom. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Judge goes out there, gets this big contract, and you know what, too? To be honest, I'm gonna give Judge a lot of the credit too, but I'm gonna give a lot of credit to Hal Steinbrenner. Hal Steinbrenner, who takes a lot of flack from from everybody, from the media, from Yankee fans. And I remember when Derek Jeter was having his ceremony at Yankee Stadium, when Hal came out, he got booed by the Yankees crowd. And I remember Derek Jeter even saying back then, "Don't boo this man. Just wait. Just wait. One day." What he was alluding to basically today. Jeter knew that when it comes down to it, Hal is a Steinbrenner. And Steinbrenner, Steinbrenners know how to get the job done. They close the deal, they get the guy they want, and they wanted Aaron Judge, and they got the job done. That's what it came down to. So I got to give a big tip of the cap to Hal, got to give a big tip of the cap to Judge, and not so much to Brian Cashman. I like Brian Cashman. I still consider him one of the better GMs in baseball, but I think he really fumbled this. Not only should Judge have been extended a couple of years ago, and it would have been at substantially less money, like we mentioned earlier, hint, hint, Mets. Think about that when it comes to Pete Alonso. Let's not get stupid and let him get to free agency. But hey, I think Brian Cashman lowballed him, and he ended up betting on himself, Judge that is, this for this full season, and he ended up making an extra $130, $140 million out of it. The Padres and Giants were in the mix at the end there, but he wanted to be a Yankee. So even though he might have been angry at Cashman and the Yankees, because word did come out a couple of days ago that Aaron Judge was not happy that the financial numbers from that contract offer came out on opening day or right around there, that he had turned down that 8-year, $215 million contract from the Yankees. He was not happy that got out because that was supposed to be confidential between him and Yankee upper management. Well, I guess that's all water under the bridge when you've got $360 million, right, Dan?
Exactly. I probably that, and he actually wanted to come back. I mean, yeah, we could give credit to Hal Steinbrenner. Maybe not so much among him, but it was Aaron Judge mainly. He wanted to come back, and he did.
Oh yeah,
And
but you have to give Hal credit because Judge called him, and they could have stuck at 320, but he bumped it up to that 360. So that's the only reason that I give Hal that credit.
but now let's see. Only time will tell how it works out.
Yeah, it's true. And it looks like the Yankees aren't done yet either because they're really in the mix for Carlos Rodon, who I'm really hoping the Mets are still in the mix for too. I'm not sure how realistic that is still. I hope that that's a possibility. But Carlos Rodon, definitely a big option for the Yankees. And I'm telling you right now, if obviously my hope is that the Mets get him. I don't know if they're going to spend that big on him, but I hope the Mets get him. But I'm telling you right now, that would be a terrific, terrific move for the Yankees. He would slot perfectly in that rotation, right above Nestor Cortez. So I mean, then you'd have a top four of obviously Garrett Cole, Carlos Rodon, Nestor Cortez, and Luis Severino. And that's a pretty, pretty good 1, 2, 3, 4. And then, you throw Domingo Herman or whoever else the Yankees want to be in that number 5 contending spot. That's a good rotation. That's a better rotation than the Yankees have had the last couple of years, especially if Severino is healthy. So I think adding another piece like that is really, really big. The Yankees are also looking at bringing back Benintendi. So a lot of options to go. What do you think, Dan? Do you think either of those guys go to the Yankees, or do you think that it's pretty much Judge and done for them?
Said I have a feeling there's going to be both the Mets and the Yankees will be making two more big moves this off season.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because the Mets spent big on Verlander, the Yankees spent big on Judge. That can't be it. There has to be one more.
Hear the music in the background?
No.
No, I want to make sure you can't hear the music in the background. Just freaking open the door.
No, I can't hear it. It's okay. So all right, man. With that, let's move on to the football as we wrap up our show here and come down to the final half of the show. We'll do the football real quick as man, I'm telling you right now, it was a very, very painful football Sunday for us New York fans. The Giants had they had a 10-point lead. Unfortunately, they end up blowing that lead. It goes to overtime, 20-20. They have a chance to win it at the end with I believe a 57-yard field goal or so, and Graham Gano just comes up a couple of yards short of a good field goal, which would have meant a Giant victory. So unfortunately, it ends a 20-20 tie. What are your thoughts on that, Dan? Obviously, a tie stinks. It's not as good as a win, but it's also not as bad as a loss. What was your instant reaction to that game?
I was half happy, half upset. What can I say? All right, it's not anything I'm going to be happy about. It's not. I'm probably going to be more upset than anything happy because it's still we didn't win in the end, and depending what happens the rest of the way, that one could bite us in the ass. I mean, I feel like a lot of us because doesn't happen often that football games end in a tie. That we forget that these games during a regular season, of course, I mean during the playoffs, there's no ties during the playoffs, but we didn't expect during the regular season we were going to end in a tie. Then, as a matter of fact, the last time the Giants game ended in a tie was in 1997.
Wow, it's been that long.
Yeah, it's been that long. So that's how big of a shocker this was. I was like shocked. Like, I was like, what did I just see? Like, it was, I cannot describe the look on my face after that. It was like after that, it was just like after that Giants game, I just got up, took Mr. Malunigan for his second walk of the day. I take him for another little walk. Then ordered some had made some dinner, and I think I watched this. I watched The Simpsons, and I watched this little classic action movie. I don't know if you ever saw this movie. It's probably a very underrated movie in Arnold's career that you should probably definitely get a watch if you haven't watched it yet. It's The Raw Deal.
Oh yeah, I've seen that movie. A good movie.
That movie's a good movie. I watched this movie as a kid when it aired on TV, and as I did with a lot of these great action movies from the 80s and 90s, which I feel was just two great decades that gave us such great action movies and some great action stars.
Mm-hmm.
I swear this movie's just full of 80s action movie awesomeness.
Oh, no doubt
And
about it, man.
can't beat that final scene. I mean, that's travel pit and that and high dissatisfaction by Rolling Stones playing like.
Yep.
I have to admit, if that song is playing on a radio or something, I cannot help but think of that movie. Like,
That's true. That's true.
haven't watched this one, and definitely looking for some 80s action movie awesomeness. You definitely got to watch this one.
No doubt about it, man. Love the movie recommendation. And hey, so now your Giants, that's a tough tie against the Commanders now. Next week they'll be taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Big playoff implications in this game. What are your feelings heading into this game, man? Are you confident in your Giants team right now? Do you think they could pull off the upset? Because right now it looks like Philadelphia is the best team in the NFL.
I just feel this Giants team rises to the occasion. They stay in the game to the end. I mean, and I feel plus that a couple of guys are coming back from injury, so this one's going to be a highly contested. Plus that I can't help how much extra sweeter it is when we beat the Eagles.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. You love beating those division rivals. So, yeah, I mean, this is now the first of two big games the Giants have against the Eagles down the stretch here. Really hoping they could pull this W off and, just to keep this good season going, keep Daniel Jones heading in the right direction, and, get this Giants team qualifying for a playoff. They're probably only going to need, especially with that tie, you figure maybe 2 or 3 more wins to really solidify themselves as a playoff team, but they're right on the precipice. They're right there. And, the other team in New York is also right on the precipice as they played their second game with Mike White this past Sunday, a 27-22 loss at Minnesota, where the Jets were actually down 20-3 at one point in this game. Their defense did not come out good. They allowed a lot of third down conversions, a fourth and inches. They came out really, really sleepy in the first half, especially the offense too. But it all started to click in the second half of the second quarter, where the offense started being able to move the ball. They hit a long field goal at the end of the half to make it 20-6. Then they ended up cutting it to 20-15. They got stalled so many times on the goal line and in the red zone. They had 6 chances in the red zone and only cashed in once. Just a absolutely really horrific day of offensive red zone play calling. They had chance after chance after chance to win that game, just could not lock it down. What were your thoughts, Dan, when you watched that game? It just seemed like a game of missed opportunities, right?
Yeah, from the highlights, I looked at that game. It looked like a game. It looked like a game of missed opportunities. It just looked like they missed the boat on that one.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Cannot argue with that one bit. Unfortunately, it looks like their right tackle, their fourth round draft pick from this past year, Max Mitchell, who had been playing earlier this year, just came back with an injury, from an injury this past week. Well, they're going to be without him for the rest of the year now because now he apparently had some kind of injury in that game or right after that game or whatever happened, and he's done for the year. So it stinks losing Max Mitchell. Just another injury to that Jets offensive line. On the plus side, it looks like they're going to be getting Michael Carter back for this big game against Buffalo, man. We were just talking about a big divisional game for the Giants. Big time game for the Jets, you know, against Buffalo. And the crazy thing to me is that now the Jets are going into Buffalo, who, if you remember, just a couple weeks ago, the Jets beat Buffalo 2017 already this year. And now going into Buffalo, only 2 games behind them, the Jets are 9.5-point underdogs. That just seems like a slap in the face to a team that has had a very good season so far this year. What do you think about that, Dan? Do you think that seems like a little bit of disrespect to the Jets, a 9.5-point underdog?
Yeah, I kind of think so. Also, I kind of have to say these Vegas odds makers, whatever algorithms they come up with, don't always kind of fare well. Sometimes it. On the other side, if you did place, and I'm not one to blow all my money on sports betting, but if you were to probably place a bet, you probably get a nice bit of little chunk of pocket money. Maybe book yourself a little trip to spring training because the World Baseball Classic, depending what part of Florida you are, because Florida is a massive state. So if you're like attending spring training and your team happens to be like in some place in South Florida, I don't know, maybe like of course, probably my case be the Mets, like from Lucy, catch spring training game, maybe catch one of the rounds to the World Baseball Classic while you're there. Since it's Miami's not far from Port St. Lucie, you could then maybe splurge a nice little trip with that pocket, with that maybe whatever you win, or maybe have a little extra to spend on a trip.
Very
If
true, man. Hey, because I'm telling you right now too. I think that's a lock bet. Like you just said too. I think that's a lock bet. The Jets are going to keep it because pretty much that means the Jets have to keep it within 10. And I think they're going to do that because not only did they beat them last time, look, Mike White, the only way the Jets are going to get blown out tomorrow is if the offense doesn't show up and the offense plays like crap. And while that's definitely a possibility, I think Mike White really showed last week against, obviously a good Minnesota Vikings team that he can move the ball. I mean, they had him drop back 57 times last week. 57. The Jets are not a team that usually has a quarterback dropping back 40 or 50 times a week. Usually even 30 times is not the amount of times that the Jets are throwing the ball in a game. They almost did it double that in this game with Mike White. And that just goes to show, man, you heard even after the loss, guys like Garrett Wilson coming out and saying, man, I will go to war with Mike White. Love the way he runs a huddle. Love the confidence he instills in all the players. Love how he moves the balls around, the ball around. It's a very, very encouraging stuff to hear from this Jets offense. And I think, like you said, it seems like to me like it's a slam dunk that if you take the Jets plus 9.5, the Jets might not win the game, but they're going to cover, and you're probably going to get a couple of bucks in your pocket. So I think that's a good call. And hey, so now the Jets move on. Tough loss in Minnesota. They're going to be playing Buffalo this week. So 2 big divisional matchups for our football teams this weekend. Going to be a lot of fun. And as we're rolling down here, we only got a couple of minutes left. Before we get out, I do want to touch. Obviously, I'm wearing my Rangers jersey. I'm obviously at really Madison Square Garden behind me. I can see the Zamboni right now. And the Rangers are in Vegas tonight. So before we're recording this, the Rangers will be playing later tonight against Vegas. They've had a real up and down season. A really good game the other night against the Blues, actually. They ended up winning 6-4, back and forth affair that didn't look too good early on. But one interesting thing I wanted to bring up to you, Dan, about what the Rangers are doing now is that from all the practice lines and everything they've been running out with Gallant, the top line now has been changed to, obviously, Mika Zibanejad is still the top line center, but he has bumped up Alexi Lafreniere and Capo Caco from the third and second line, respectively. Now they're both on the wings in the first line. So the first line is Lafreniere, Mika Zibanejad, Caco. I think that is a really good idea from Gallant, because the Rangers got to be getting more out of these kids. You know what you're going to get out of Panarin. You know what you're going to get out of Kreider. You know what you're going to get out of these other guys. The Rangers have to see what they have in these two kids right now, and having them play 12 or 13 minutes a night on the third line is not going to do that. They have to go out there and start playing with a big time player like Mika. And I love this move, Dan. What do you think about it?
I love this move as well. I feel it's going to work out well. I feel we're going to really. I had a feeling you have to be a little patient enough, but once a guy like Lafreniere gets going, it's going to be big. And I feel like we're on the precipice of getting to see that. Also, I have to say, since tonight's game is a 10 o'clock game, definitely set your DVR if you have to get up early and stuff. You can't really stay up late. Perhaps I'll have my DVR set up, of course, always. But yeah, that for these late night games. But definitely set your DVR and try to maybe avoid a little social media if you didn't stay up to watch, unless you stayed up, of course, to watch the game. But if you didn't and you recorded it to watch the next day, definitely try to avoid any tweets from anyone who watched the game that probably would talk about the game, because
no doubt about it. So, but what that means too is that if you want to avoid looking at it, avoid my Twitter, because I'll be up watching that game tonight while I'm editing this show. So I might have a couple of things to tweet depending how it goes.
Yeah, I'm pretty much not really gonna look at any little tweets about it. Like I might go on, like you might see me go on a tweet to tweet, but I won't be looking at any tweets about the game until after I watched the game. Similar thing I've done at times because of the little time difference. Like, it's the same time slot England as the US when it comes to the TV show Doctor Who, but because like 8 o'clock there, and we would have, which was ahead of our 8 o'clock p.m. So I would always avoid any tweets from anyone from England that had watched it before I got to see it on those days. I remember I did that. Kind of similar to this thing, in a, and but definitely, hopefully it'll be a great win, and hopefully they'll. I guess I'm gonna do this Vegas cliche thing. Hopefully they hit the jackpot with this win.
I love roping in the Vegas thing.
Yep, and don't celebrate too hard after the game. All right.
Oh yeah, boys. Go out and have a good time, but don't go too hard, because we got a couple of more big games coming up this weekend, right?
I always kind of felt that kind of scared me when I heard the idea of a professional sports team in Vegas. I mean, athletes in Vegas. I recall hearing some stuff happen when the NBA All-Star game was in Vegas, so I was kind of nervous about it, but
True.
I guess it's kind of worked out well, sports team in Vegas. I mean, the athletes that played in Vegas, they've somehow what I've heard, worked out well.
True.
And they've, I meant because they even had some success that I never expected for an expansion team. But
It's true.
Raiders moving to Vegas, I don't quite know how that's kind of went. They haven't quite had that success yet, and I haven't quite figured out how much they've taken to Vegas. But who knew Vegas would legitimately could handle they could support a professional sports team in their city. I never thought that idea.
True. Makes I definitely agree with you. I wasn't sure if that was going to be a possibility, but hey, now they got two with the Raiders and the Golden Knights now. So very, very cool to see professional sports in there. Absolutely. And yeah, hey, let's hope our Rangers get a big victory tonight because they definitely need it. And I think that's just about going to do it for us tonight. Dan, before we get out of here, you have any plugs for yourself?
Sure, my Twitter account Bobo103NYC and Bobo718DK on Instagram, and Daniel Kurlan on YouTube. All your Bobo content right there, and hopefully all you guys are watching us have a great weekend.
Absolutely. And hey, if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can check me out. My last name, Cramer NY. Check me out there. Check out the show at BSith_podcast, and also on Instagram at Best Seat in the House Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Best Seat in the House Podcast as well. So thank you once again for all your support, everything. We see our numbers are going up. We see everybody supporting us. So thank you to the people that check us out on a weekly basis. We really appreciate your support. And yeah, so that's going to do it for us this week. As always, I'm Rob Cramer with my co-host, Daniel Bobo Kurlan, and this is the Best Seat in the House podcast. We'll catch you next week.